Welcome everybody to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. We are recording today's session for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz education and outreach. Our guest today back with us is Valerie Gillespie, and the topic is first time improvisation on saxophone. We are so excited to have Valerie back with us. Participants in this session are muted for the courtesy of the session, but if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat feature or the raise your hand feature, and we will get those questions to Valerie. Your feedback on these sessions is very much appreciated. If you have a special session topic you'd like us to cover as well, please send that information to info@clearwaterjazz.com. We thank all of our sponsors that help to expand the reach of Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach. Check out our new studio resource on our education and outreach page and our new podcast of all of these sessions. Our studio resource is brought to you by Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners, and the podcast is brought to you by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. Valerie Gillespie is an adjunct faculty member at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Southern College in Lakeland, and Hillsborough Community College in Tampa. She earned her BFA from Carnegie Mellon with a major in classical saxophone and her MM in jazz saxophone from the University of South Florida. Valerie has played with national icons including Chick Corea, Bobby McFerrin, Rosemary Clooney, George Burns, Ben Vereen, Natalie Cole, Joan Rivers, Diana Ross, Ray Charles, and many more. She has had some exciting travels and performs regularly with Chuck Owen and the Jazz Surge. Recently, Valerie has had the distinct honor of being the cover story and feature article in Saxophone Today magazine. Additionally, she leads her own jazz group that frequently performs in the Tampa Bay area and has produced numerous CDs in which she plays all the saxophones, flutes, clarinet, and sings as well. Her most recent jazz CD, Lush Life, includes music by Chick Corea and Billy Strayhorn. She is also frequently the featured soloist with the Florida Orchestra and has performed at many jazz festivals, including the Suncoast Jazz Classic and the Clearwater Jazz Holiday. Valerie, thank you so much for being a special part of these virtual sessions. The stage is all yours.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, and this is a special topic for me because I do a lot of private teaching and trying to get people to feel a little bit uninhibited to start improvising, because when people have never done it, it seems really mysterious and scary and like awful, but it seems fun too. So I want you to get to the point where you can just play some and not get crazy and not have like unrealistic expectations, but to just understand that these things can make you sound like you know what you're doing very early in the game, okay? So the two basic things that you have to think about when you're playing are the rhythm that the group is playing with you, and then the notes, okay? Let's start with the rhythm, because I think the rhythm is really more important, and it's what people have a tendency when they're first starting to try to play too many notes, and then they don't like what they did, and then they feel intimidated and they want to give up. So what I would do is just listen to the rhythm section, and if the rhythm section goes then I go and just singing it back and forth with the rhythm section gets you a little bit closer to playing, okay? Everybody who's a musician sings whether they want other people to hear them or not. So you just want to get to the point where like you can sing something along with the recording, okay? And you have to listen to the rhythm section for ideas. So if they go Dunga-dinga-dinga-dum. Then I'm going to go dunga-dinga-dinga-dum. Doesn't matter if I play exactly their line, but if I can imitate the rhythm that they are playing, then I am in the groove or in the pocket, as the jazz folks say. So when you're listening, you want to listen, figure out if it's a swing tune or if it's Latin or something like that, so that you're feeling what the group is doing. So you want to definitely listen to a track. And by the way, I'm going to just, if it's okay, Steve, I'd like to just hold up a book that is very helpful. Is that okay if I do that?
Absolutely.
Jamie Aebersold is very famous in the jazz improvisation world, and he has probably 200 different series. The one that I have right there is called Major and Minor. And what it is, it's just, they have tracks of just people playing, the rhythm section playing on one chord. So they're not moving around a lot, and you have to kind of chase them. They stay in one section, and then you can kind of improvise along with it. And it makes it a little bit easier than just getting your bearings, and then they move to another chord, and then you feel like you're off. So I would highly recommend this. It's called Major and Minor, and it's volume 24. So let's see. I'm trying to think what the website is. You can, jazzbooks.com. Sounds pretty easy. And they have a CD with it, and you can download stuff and everything. So it's really good, and it gives you a chance to practice alone so that you can say, okay, I'm going to get super simple here. The scale is a G scale, so I'm going to just start on a G. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate what I would do if the track were playing just something in G. See, I'm staying very simple, but it still has some movement to it. And I know, first of all, knowing your scales is going to help you a lot. But even before that, if you can see the name of the scale, if it's a G major chord, you can play G all day long and it's going to sound good. You can play low and high, and it doesn't matter. You can't be wrong. So if I were doing that, I would sound like this. Sit in a low G and then a high G, and it blends in and it sounds good, and you don't have to be trying to think about the technique and the rhythm and the nerves and everything. Little quick story. First time I ever improvised, my family was very musical, and the first time I ever improvised, I was 13 years old, but I was playing with a professional jazz band, a swing band that they had in town. Of course, this was a million years ago. And so they did Mac the Knife, and they told me to do a solo. And so I improvised, but of course, when rehearsal was over, I was 13 years old, so I was crying. I was like, I sound really terrible. It was awful. And my dad said, well, what were you trying to do? Well, I wanted to sound good. He said, well, you know the song Mac the Knife. Yeah, but you have to. No, you don't. You can just start with that and just kind of change it a little bit, but you don't have to be some great improvisational composer. So that was a really good advice for me from my dad, which I always got. I always got good advice from my dad. He was just really my rock when it came to learning music, and he was excited that I wanted to do it. So he would always come in and you know, he'd say, have you ever heard of this song? And if I didn't know, if I hadn't heard of it, he would play it. And then I would have to try to match the notes. And that was a really good experience for me. So there we are with my initial improvisation story. So what you want to do, if you have, like if I were doing Mac the Knife, I could do see how you could hear a little bit of Mac the Knife in there, and it kind of gets you feeling comfortable. So you just, you gain that confidence, and then it allows you to stretch your boundaries a little bit, okay? But the key, the absolute key, is to keep it very simple and embrace silence. Silence is okay. Silence is very good. So if you're taking your solo and somebody else improvised and then it's your turn, you might want to take like a measure of when you're supposed to start, just kind of listening and see what inspiration the background is giving you. And then that way you don't just jump right in and adrenaline takes off, okay? Now you see, I'm really concentrating on the fact that it is kind of a nerve-wracking situation because we all feel like when we improvise, we should be awesome. And when you talk to the people who are seasoned at this, none of them thinks that they are awesome. And they all went through this initial phase, and no matter how well they're playing, they want to play better. And the only way you can do that is to just experiment and try. So we are lucky nowadays to have things like the Jamie Ebersol tracks, because years ago you didn't have that. If you wanted to play with music, you had to go to a jam session. And that was a little more intimidating because those guys were hip and they knew what they were doing. And if you didn't have any idea and you were a nervous 13-year-old like me, you might have a meltdown. So the playing along with these tracks is just fabulous experience. And you can just use your ear. You know what the root of the chord is, so the beginning of the scale, and just play that. And then when you're ready, you can try branching out a little bit and play the first note and the third note of the scale. And that gives you two notes that you're kind of going back and forth between. And they're both going to sound good in the improvisation. And you're not having to think really hard because you're not doing a lot of can you G, crazy, moving fast fingers. And it's still hip. In fact, sometimes it's hipper that way. All right, so I'm going to go back on the G again, and I'm just going to play the G and the B. Those are the only two notes I can do. Now I can do them super low, middle, or high, but you know, it's all right. So you just want to find that variation. I'll start off simply, and then I'll start stretching. Okay, so I'm going to do the root and the third of the chord. So you can kind of feel it, and you can imagine what the background is going to sound like. And if you know those two notes, which in that case I was playing G and B because that's the root and the third of the chord, then you're good. and you're going to sound good no matter what you do. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to start adding notes like the root, the third, and the fifth. And the cool thing about it is in the Aversol, they show you the scale notes, and the ones that are the strong, good sounding notes, they darken them in. So you, just on sight, you will know a choice. You don't always have to start with the root. You could start with the third because they're showing you right there, and then eventually you learn it on root. So I'm going to do a little bit of an exercise that is just on the 1, 3, 5. So the first, third, and fifth notes of the scale. You hear it? It's a line and it's got direction, and it sounds like I know what I'm doing because I'm not really jumping out of the box too much. And that's what you want to do. That's what you want to focus on when you are initially trying this. But one of the other things that I want you to understand is no one ever feels good about the first improvisation or even the second improvisation or even the third improvisation, because you know what you want to play and what you want to hear coming out of the horn. So you just have to have realistic expectations. If you can play the root and the third and the fifth, even if you're just doing whole notes, if you're staying within those, then you're in the chord and you're right in there. And so it doesn't sound wrong. It can't sound wrong, okay? So you just want to get to the point where when you look at a chord symbol, you could play the scale and you know what the scale is, or you could play the root, third, fifth, or the next one I'm going to do is a root, third, fifth, seventh, okay? I'm going to do a major 7 chord on G, okay? So you see how I just used different range there, and the major 7 sounds cool, and so I like that note, and so I just kind of focus on that. And that's one of the things that you want to do when you're listening to the Aversol tracks and you're trying to play with it. Make sure you listen to what the sound is that you like. If you're playing the fifth of the chord and it sounds boring to you, sounds too vanilla, then I wouldn't use it as a first choice. Third is always going to sound good. So the third note of whatever scale that you're improvising on is going to sound good. So that's a good place to start, okay? Now, let me see how I can say this. If you know your scale, you know that there are 8 basic notes. Now, in jazz, sometimes we refer to lines, like musical lines, with these numbers, like I've been doing. The 1 and the 3 and the 5, or 1, 3, 5, 7. And one of the a little bit more modern sounds is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now the 9, you're kind of going, what the heck is that? Because there are only 8 notes. It's simply the second note of the scale up an octave. So let me demonstrate it very simply. So you see how I went up to the 9th of it? Now the 9 really sounds cool. At first you might think you're making a mistake. It's a jazz sound. It's not so much a classical sound. So if you haven't listened a lot to jazz, it might feel like you're doing something wrong, but you're not. You're hip. You're too hip for the room. So, all right. So now I'm going to do an improvisation on the 13579, and I'm going to try to think of a Latin groove. So see, and in the Abersol books, they have all those notes that I just played darkened in. So I could do the same thing on any scale. I just go to a different track. It's got every major key and every minor key. So I just go to a different track and I look at those notes while the background track is playing. I listen for the rhythm to make sure that I'm feeling the groove. Because if it's a Latin tune, you definitely want to think. Instead of boom, ding, 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 ding. See, that second one is swing, right? And they're both cool and they're both considered jazz. So you just listen to the track that is being played, that you've chosen, and you figure out what the swing, whether it's swing or Latin, and then you just play the black notes, or one of the black notes, or just a couple of the black notes. Jamie Abersol likes to have people improvise on the first, second, and third note of a scale. So say, for example, I was on the G, he would just have people go G, A, B. Those are your choices. So let me demonstrate how that sounds. And they're very close together and simple to feel. You won't feel like your fingers are going to mess up. So I'm going to do that on a G, and I'm going to use G, A, and B. Three notes right next to each other, and it sounds good. I mean, not to sound like I'm bragging or anything, but I know that I can count on that to be within the rhythm and within the scale or the chord that is being played. Okay, but that's one of the reasons you want to get this Abersol and practice one track at a time instead of a song where it keeps changing and you start to get your bearings and then they move to another chord and it kind of can throw you off, and then you have a meltdown like a 13-year-old Valerie. So you definitely want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the first, second, and third notes of a C scale. And also I'm going to incorporate a lot of silence into this, because the silence is what makes the improvisation hip. If you've ever listened to Miles Davis, you'll notice he's awesome, he's totally hip, and he's completely different from John Coltrane. And the hip thing about Miles is that silence gets your attention. And so then you listen and you say, oh, what's he gonna do next? So that's what I'm gonna try to do with just these three notes, C, D, E, on a C scale. See, the space kind of gets your attention. It's just like somebody whispering. And instead of having a loud voice, I have a very strong voice. And but if someone were to whisper, you would automatically listen to what they were doing. So I want you to understand that silence is good. And another thing that's good is repetition. I know we think, oh man, I've already used that lick. That's okay. That's how we built jazz. You can't play a lick that someone else has not already played. It doesn't exist. It's been going on for so long that every idea is used and every rhythm is used. What you want to do is put them together in your way to have your voice. So let me, what do I want to do here? I'm going to just demonstrate some repetition, and I'm going to use a swing groove in my head. Now, with swing, you're always snapping on 2 and 4. So if you know about music, you know basically often you have 4 beats in a measure, and so you don't want to snap on 1 and 3 because that's very vanilla. You want to snap on 2 and 4, and then your hip, okay? 1, 2. 1, 2. See how I had that little ball, I kept that going through it, and it gives a cohesiveness to the solo. If you're all over the place and you're not confident, the combination of the two can make it sound less professional, okay? And if you can make it sound professional, that's what you want to look for, okay? So just kind of recapping some of these things, we're really thinking about rhythm and listening to the background track and kind of imitating what they do. And sometimes a good way to start that is not even with your horn, just sing it. And what you hear them do, sing it back and get into that feel of it, okay? And keep it nice and simple. Don't try to be too inventive or you're gonna be disappointed in yourself. All right, now, and then we wanna think about the notes, and so you need to know at least what the root of the chord is. But if you get the Aebersold book, it's very helpful because they have them blacked in, okay? So we wanna review that as well. And also, you need to learn your scales. I know it seems like a drag and nobody wants to practice their scales. Professionals practice their scales every day, every single day. Doing different orders or different directions, starting from top to bottom or whatever, but you want that movement as you progress a little bit into your improvisation. You want to know if somebody said play a G major scale, that you could do that and you wouldn't have to think about what the notes are. You want your fingers to get a little bit on autopilot, okay? So you want to know your scales really well, and then you also want to learn your basic chord tones, your preferred chord tones, and those are usually 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So what I do sometimes is I'll just go through the whole horn and I'll play 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 on every note, okay? So I'm going to do that for you. It's going to take a minute. So you see how I do that? And I'm learning it on every note so that when it comes on the music and the track is on, that I have a little bit more confidence because my fingers have practiced it. And I remember very clearly when a really advanced saxophone player said to me, well, if you want to get better at improvising, sit down with this page and just play the scales, but think the rhythm, think the 4 beats and measure. And so I started playing, but I wasn't doing that because I thought, well, I'm supposed to be improvising. Okay, yeah, you do, that's our ultimate goal, but we have to do stepping stones along the way. So he said, just go through and play the scales, look at the song like it's going by, and just play the scales the whole time. And then he said, now just play the chord tones, the 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. down there. And then you get to the point where you can improvise rhythmically from those notes. So if I'm starting on the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, I'm going to be in C. So I'm going to start on the 9 because I like that sound. So I'm going to start on a D in the mid register, and then I'll work my way down. You see how I'm doing it, but then I start stretching it. So they're expecting me to play the same vanilla rhythm, and I go, yeah, I don't feel like it. I want to just try a little bit, and then I sound like I'm really kind of getting in the groove or in the pocket, okay? One of the final things that I want you to make sure that you're doing, you don't want to be trying to learn to play jazz, but never listening to jazz, okay? So if you are in the mindset that you want to learn to play jazz, then you have to listen to some things and see what you like. Now, for me, I've always liked Cannonball Adderley. And he had the ultimate sound to me, just airstream and drive and big and fat. And it always sounded confident. And of course, he knew what he was doing. So it sounded confident because of that too. But the sound, and I loved the way he played. So I listened to that and sort of did my own version of that. And then I said, well, what does he play? You know, yeah, his sound is gorgeous, but what does he play? So I started listening to some of the rhythms that he did. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to try to remember that one. And so I picked up my A resolve, majors and minors, and I said, I'm going to use that rhythm with Cannonball sound on this particular track, like F major. And I just focused on that. And I didn't try to branch out too much because I was trying to learn one concept. So that, I think that really helped me to listen to players. And then when I'm playing, I have some idea of what I want to sound like. Because if I don't, then it ends up sounding, I don't want to say chaotic, but it doesn't sound focused. Okay? I have recently started singing, and I really love singing. And so I have to listen to people like Nancy Wilson, Shirley Horn. I'm having a little brain freeze right now, but the people that I love the sound of are the ones that I listen to. And then when I sing, I kind of do my version of their sound and their approach. Some people are very simple in their choices for singing the notes, and then other people like to put a little dip or hold off on the phrase and then squish it all at the end, and it sounds more conversational like that. So you want to listen to who you find some stuff that you love and always listen to that, and then just try to emulate that. Okay, so we definitely want to do a lot of listening. And now that it's 2020, you've got the internet. I didn't have that when I was a kid. If I wanted to listen to jazz, I had to borrow someone's album or go and buy one. And I didn't have the money. And plus, I lived way out in the country. So it was all, just my dad kind of teaching me. So you definitely are lucky these days that any song by any artist that you want to hear, you can find. Okay, so I would highly encourage you to do that. So just starting from the beginning, the things that we're going to talk about are basically rhythm. That's what we want to think about when we improvise, and then the notes. Okay, so you want to sound like you're playing with the group, and that you're having a conversation with the group. Okay, so rhythm and notes, and then listening to see who you like, and trying to emulate that. And also, don't forget, I'm going to hold the book up again. Jamie Aebersold, Major and Minor. And if you look at the top there, it says volume 24. Like I said, he's got a gazillion volumes. I don't know if I used gazillion last time, but yeah, he's got a lot of stuff. So there's a never-ending supply of things to play along with. So I hope that is a good starting point, and I hope that you don't let your nerves and intimidation keep you from trying this, because I guarantee you will love it. It's so fun. There you go.
Wow, that was really, really great today, Valerie. Thank you so much for being a part of these sessions. Fantastic stuff. And I'm going to be twisting your arm in the hopes that you will come back and help present some more sessions. Would you be happy to join us?
I would love to do that.
That's amazing. Well, I'll definitely be reaching out to you to discuss some fun new topics. And for those that will be listening to this session, please check out all of the wonderful upcoming musicians. Tomorrow, for instance, Michelle Mayo with Rollins College and Valencia College is back with us on a topic she's calling a basic approach to learning a jazz standard from a singer's perspective. And on Wednesday of this week, August the 5th, Jeremy Carter, who is really involved with Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach, is back with a topic on advanced tenor sax. We have Pat Close joining us next week with a series of drum sessions, the first of which is drum warm-up exercises, pad work, and Pete Carney for the State College of Florida in Bradenton is with us on Tuesday, August 11th, with his topic for that session, Improvising Over Stella by Starlight, Negotiating Difficult Chord Changes. And we are from Orlando and UCF, Per Danielson is with us with a jazz piano harmonization class on August the 12th, and so much more. So we're so grateful to have all these incredible, talented professional musicians lending their time and talents and being part of this program. So check out all of these resources. And Valerie, we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right, I cannot wait.
Well, thank you again for being part of this, and thank you also to the Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association for helping us to do more of these sessions. So keep playing out there, everybody. Stay safe, be well, and we will see you next time. Take care.